For anyone still out there, this is the Dystopic Radio Network.
I can't really remember when I last had any hope.
Somewhere
I came into this game for the action, the excitement.
on the abandoned highways of tomorrow.
You're either living or you're not.
I want everyone to remember.
Keep your radio on. Listen for our broadcasts.
Their names are the Dystopic Boys.
This month
on the Dystopic Boys.
In the future, after the big war, there will come a time to rebuild.
A world where pleasure is forbidden.
This man is carrying a loaded weapon.
Prepare to meet the next great American hero.
The world we are preparing, Winston, is a constant victory, a constant triumph. You are beginning to accept it.
He's coming.
I'm not sure where her loyalties lie.
When hell comes to
1984.
Do you wake from your finest fantasy only to return to your daily nightmare?
And welcome back, everybody, to 2013. Welcome back to the Dystopic Radio Network. Both to the future listeners of the podcast as well as the live Ustream listeners. My name is Wendell. I'm here, as always, with one of my fellow survivor, Niles.
Holy crap, we're live.
How's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
I can't believe we're recording.
I know.
All right, let's do this.
Recording and live, hopefully. So yeah, if anybody's actually listening out there live, this is a test. The audio quality is not the greatest, but hey, we'll work on that in future episodes.
Yeah, we decided to try to do this Ustream stuff, so here we are.
So what's going on, Niles? What's new?
New year brings a whole lot of new ideas, and so since we're coming up on February episode 6, I've got some new ideas rolling around for what we're gonna do here for Dystopic Boys. So it's kind of exciting. And
outstanding.
I know you know a couple of these ideas.
Really? You haven't informed me.
I think we talk to each other outside of this podcast world.
I just remember talking to you on the 22nd, I think, or the 23rd, whichever day it was. I think it was 22nd.
Hey, Wendell.
Shut your hole!
Oh, that's hopefully the last time we're going to have to hear that one.
Hell comes to Frogtown.
Yeah, so, all right, we'll get to that in a second. As always, though, 2013 brings nothing different. This time, though, we're going to start out with our What Are You Drinking segment.
Tasty. What are we drinking, Wendell?
This time, we are drinking, actually, the 12th beer of the apocalypse. It's the Elysian Doom Golden Treacle Pale.
A tear has fallen from my eye because it's the last one.
The last one of the
unless I can find the backstock.
I know. I'm still hoping that we're going to be able to find some of the backstock for these. So this beer is let's see. If the world were coming in, blah blah blah. Beer number 12, Doom Golden Treacle Pale, is brewed with oats, fermented with golden syrup and raisins. And then Doom is the end. Remember, the end is beer.
The end is beer.
Actually, the end is past at this point. Anyway,
but the end is still beer.
Okay, nice light color. Cheers to 2013, whatever it may bring.
So yeah, in case we didn't say it, it's January 2013, episode 5.
That's really good.
And we are calling this Hell Comes to 1984.
That's a good beer. It actually reminds me a lot of an IPA. Kind of a light IPA. It's got that bitterness to it.
But it's got that sweet kind of syrupy leftover.
Maltiness.
Leftover.
Yeah, that's actually very good. So yeah, we will. It'll depend on whether or not we're able to find any more of these beers of the apocalypse. We are going to attempt to find backstock of these from the previous year, and actually have these like the following months from a year ago. But if we're unable to find these going forward, we will be sampling some of the other beers that are available in our area.
We've been giving Elysian so much love recently, so we might branch out.
We figure it's time to soon branch out.
And then come back. But
branch out and try some other ones. So, all right. Let's move on to the last frequency.
We interrupt this program to bring
this broadcast to bring you this important
Science fiction garbage.
she keeps saying that. It's not garbage. It's the last frequency. Welcome back, 2013. And there's a lot of stuff coming up this year.
There is, and I'm really excited about it.
There's a lot of stuff. I'm going to start with games, since I love to play games every once in a while when I have time. First of all, I know Wendell hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah,
but,
no spoilers.
The Walking Dead game by Telltale Games is, I believe, working on Season 2. They've been talking about the one big thing is carrying over the saves from the previous game and into the next game, which basically means that they're going to carry over the saves, carry over the characters that you had from the previous game, and carry it over into the next game. So not a lot of news yet besides just it's probably going to happen, and it's probably going to be maybe based around Clementine a little bit.
My goal is to, before Season 2, the first episode releases, be completely caught up on Season 1. That way I can get equally as behind on Season 2 as I currently am on Season 1.
I think you have plenty of time. I really don't see this being done till maybe the end of this year.
I was going to say, my guess is they'll probably aim for a holiday release on it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But, and then for those of you who, so yeah, I mean, that's basically all the news I have for that. BioShock Infinite is coming out in March. For those who don't know, BioShock is this really cool dystopian-based first-person shooter game, and I haven't played any of it yet, and our friend Nick says it's awesome and definitely falls into our category.
I've played just a little bit of it. The idea behind the game is, at least the first game, is that it's set in this underwater world where basically it was created as a place for the scientist elites to be able to do their work apart from the I don't know what you would call it, the strictures of normal government and normal academia, a way that they can do pure science. And basically everything goes horribly wrong, and this underwater place, and it's almost designed kind of as a steampunk kind of an era. It's almost like a Victorian era, but with modern technology in that era. So it's a really cool motif and a really, really interesting approach to a game. So like you said, BioShock Infinite comes out soon.
Yeah, and I'll be talking more about actual details of the Infinite game come next episode. But I'm going to try and play at least through the first game before it comes out. Hopefully, maybe I can get to number 2, but who knows?
Yeah.
By the time we get to the next episode, who knows?
Let's just say I've played through the first probably hour of the game, of the first one, and it's kind of scary, which anybody that knows me knows I'm not into the scary stuff. So I really like the story and everything, but it's kind of difficult for me to get into games where they're, that kind of jump out at you, freak you out type of moments.
Stupid.
Yeah, it is stupid, and I wish I could change that. Let's just say I will play this game with the lights on during the day, with the blinds up, and somebody else in the house.
I'm sure it's not as bad as Fear. So
yeah, that's true. It is not as bad as Fear, but that's a very good reason I've never played Fear.
Holy crap!
So anyway, so I'm gonna try to play that before our next episode, so I can at least talk about it more. And then there's this game called Remember Me. And
Remember who?
Remember Me.
Oh, okay.
And you just like the picture of it, but
I do like the picture. It's a nice picture. For anybody wondering, just go look up the cover for Remember Me on Google.
But it looks like it's kind of like a little bit of Mirror's Edge. Is it Mirror's Edge?
Yeah, kind of the first person runner style of game.
It looks a little bit like that, and what's the other game? I can't remember the other game. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you look it up. It looks kind of cool. It's definitely a dystopian world.
Yeah,
it's definitely it's kind of a steampunk, kind of a.
The game itself, the gameplay itself, is not necessarily a dystopian style of game, but the world that they've set the story in is definitely in that genre of a future where things aren't good and that type of thing. So I definitely think it qualifies.
Yeah, I was looking for. I can't. Here we go. I can't find it. I was trying to find the developer. Oh, it's Capcom. So think Capcom a little bit and their style of fighting, and it's got the ability to like climb walls and climb your environments, and then also the Capcom kind of fighting style a little bit. So, but that's kind of new on the list. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing more about it. Capcom games are a little not my style.
Another Capcom series, actually, of games that falls into the not dystopian but post-apocalyptic is Resident Evil. Their whole series is kind of set in a virus turned zombie style of atmosphere, and I think that series often gets overlooked as a kind of apocalypse series.
Yeah, what was it? 6? Did that just come out?
Was it
6?
I think it was 5, wasn't it?
6. They were just being released. What does it say? Wait for it. March. It's coming out in March.
Oh, okay. Resident Evil 6 in
PlayStation
March.
3 and Xbox 360 October 2012.
Okay. So it looks like Resident Evil 6 has already been out.
It's been out. See, I completely.
Yeah, I was never into that style of gameplay.
It's. I don't know. It always kicked my butt when I was playing it. So I was like, "This is too hard."
Well, the first few games, it was you couldn't shoot unless you were stopped. So like you could run, and then you had to stop and turn and shoot, and then you could run some more, but you could not shoot while you ran.
Talk about amping up the scare factor.
Yeah, it's like, okay, do I run away or do I shoot them? Because I can't do both at the same time.
But I have to do both because otherwise I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Basically, you just stop and say,
"Hey, Squidlet!"
and then pop. Take them out.
Yeah. All right, so those are the upcoming games. It looks like you've got on here some other media that's going to be coming out, whether it's movies.
Yeah, so let's switch over to films really quick. Entertainment Weekly just came out with a little bit of behind the scenes of the new Hunger Games film, Catching Fire. You know what? I haven't read the books. I'd be excited to see it because I at least loved the second half of the first one. I think.
You had some issues with the first part of the first one.
The problem with the first one was the cinematography, the shaky Bourne style was just ridiculous. I was sitting in the theater and I was like itching to like just hit it in the face because it was. It's just like it's never happened to me before, but this one. But anyway, I got to go back and watch the first one. But there's pictures and online. There's more information coming out. It should be coming out later this year. I don't have the official date in front of me. And then next month, February 10th, The Walking Dead, second part, season 3 returns.
Season 3, part 2. Yeah.
Basically,
which I still have to catch up. No spoilers.
Basically, if you read the comics, you know what happens at the prison is probably going to mostly happen towards the end of the season. It's going to be
which is
crazy.
Messed up in the comics.
Everything's messed up in the comics.
Yeah.
But the return of the season is going to be pretty awesome and pretty epic, and we'll see how Tyrese.
Sure.
I was like Tyrese or Tyrone.
Wait,
it's Tyrese.
Who are we talking about here? I don't think I know this person yet.
The new token black guy that shows up. The token.
Oh wait, are we talking about the new prison guy? The guy that shows up in the prison?
No, he's spoiler alert.
I don't think I know this part yet.
Where'd you get to?
I'm like halfway through the prison.
You read the comics though. He's the one.
Yeah,
he's the
yeah.
one. It's
okay.
Tyrese. I believe it's Tyrese.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry if I'm wrong. You can correct me.
Yeah, I remember that from the comics. I have not gotten that far in the TV series. So
I forgot all Walking Dead you're behind. So
yeah, like 4 episodes or 5 episodes, I believe.
So with that, there's your news. Last frequency stuff. Let's move on to.
Let's move on.
One of 2 of our films.
Our first movie, we decided to go with the ridiculous one first. Hell Comes to Frogtown. So we're going to hear a little synopsis of the movie by our good friend Mark Howland, who did our voice work for this episode.
Hell is the name of the hero of the story. He's a prisoner of the women who now run the USA after a nuclear biological war. Results of the war are that mutants have evolved, and the human race is in danger of extinction due to infertility. Hell is given the task of helping in the rescue of a group of fertile women from the harem of the mutant leader, resembling a frog. Hell cannot escape since he has a bomb attached to his private parts, which will detonate if he strays more than a few hundred yards from his guard.
That's how I feel about this movie. Oh my god!
Wasn't this movie a fantastic, just piece of something?
Oh, Mark read it so well. Hell comes to Frogtown.
All right, so as you heard Mark say in the synopsis, this is set in a post-apocalyptic world where atomic bombs have fallen all across the world. Most of the population is sterile, cannot reproduce. There are some mutants that look like frogs, and so the U.S. government, now run by women, is on the search for fertile men and women to repopulate the Earth.
Yeah, basically, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, basically, some people that can reproduce, basically, because these frog people are taking over. That's driving me crazy. So, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a 1987 cult film that was created by Donald G. Jackson, who also did all the other Frogtown movies. The other, well, yeah, quote-unquote 3, but there's actually 2 others. We'll talk about that later. Screenplay was written by Jackson and Randall Frakes.
Because you need 2 guys, apparently.
Well, you also need 2 guys to direct it, because Jackson and Kaiser, R.J. Kaiser, also directed the film.
So Niles,
yes.
Important point here.
Yes.
Who starred in this movie? What was the starring actor in this movie?
Oh, you want to know who starred in this movie?
Yeah, I want to know who starred in this movie.
Who starred in this movie was professional wrestler Roddy Piper. That's right.
So
that's right. Women of the 80s.
So the idea of having a professional wrestler starring in a movie is not a modern concept, apparently.
But a professional wrestler starring in a B movie, B dystopian, Hell Comes to Frogtown is especially appropriate.
That's
and
true.
Especially
that's very true.
For Roddy Piper, who sucks.
Yeah, he was. Okay, anybody who's seen any movie with The Rock, picture The Rock about 10 times worse. Like, The Rock is a A-list movie celebrity as far as celebrities are concerned. Compared to Roddy Piper. That's all I'm saying.
So bad.
You 2 ladies must have moons for balls.
Yeah, one of many absolutely terrible one-liners by this professional wrestler. So, what do you think about this movie?
Oh, you know what? I mean, we could talk all day about how crappy the acting was, or how what was it, Sparkles?
Oh, the main
was
female
her
character.
name?
Basically, Roddy Piper is a male who has been found to be very fertile, and so he becomes the property of the U.S. government and is basically told that he and 2 other characters are going to go into Frogtown and rescue a group of virgins.
And I don't have the I don't have the audio on here, but it's the nurse basically says you have one of the highest spermatozoan counts that we've seen here. So basically, they strap a bomb to his junk so that he doesn't run away, and so that he helps them on their mission.
So if at any point he gets further away from this nurse Sparkles than is necessary, this basically a chastity belt with explosive attached starts to beep. And then the earring in her ear will set off an explosive charge, therefore rendering
dismembering him.
Yes. And then the other earring in her other ear is a location tracking device that she can use to
basically track his
that she can use to track where he is at all times. So, yeah, as you can see, Finn, the interesting thing about this movie though is that the premise of the movie is actually not that far-fetched, or not that it's not far-fetched, it's that it's actually an interesting idea of a dystopian post-apocalyptic world. I mean, you look at Children of Men. Children of Men approach the same topic from a significantly less ridiculous idea, or less ridiculous premise.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely the idea of the environment changing and men and women not being able to reproduce because of biological things that are happening with the atomic war and whatever else. I mean, it's definitely been covered in other films like Children of Men.
Well, even Aeon Flux.
And
right?
Aeon Flux.
I mean, I just now thought about it, that Aeon Flux, which we covered on our last December episode, was that same idea of humans were no longer able to reproduce by natural means, so they reverted to cloning, where they were cloning human beings instead of reproducing naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And then, they touch on things like, even one of the titles of the trilogy.
In the
trilogy,
loosest,
they touch on ideas of, Mad Max. Like riding around.
Which I've still never seen.
Well, it's on the list, baby.
I know, it is on the list.
And they're coming out with... By the way, I saw new clips of the new Mad Max Fury Road and all the vehicles that they're making for it. It looks pretty sweet. So anyway, but they touch on all these different kind of films. So it had the potential to do some more things, but obviously they ran out of want and budget.
I ran out of a lot of other stuff in this thing too.
So we could talk about. Wendell, what were your thoughts?
What is there to say? No, pretty much the same. It was one of those things where the again, the premise of the movie I actually really did like, but it's one of those. It's like a sports team, right? Where you have a good game plan, but it doesn't get executed properly. I almost feel the overall story has some merits, but it did not get executed in a way. I don't know. Maybe it held up in the 1980s. It doesn't hold up now. So that brings up an interesting question, though. How could so we're in agreement that this movie is one that has some merits to it if it was done properly. So, if we were making this movie today, who?
Are we going to go there?
Yeah,
are we going to go there?
Okay. How could we make this movie today in a way that was not terrible, or say was better? So Rowdy Roddy Piper, right? Who would?
Do we want to start with?
Yeah,
who
let's go with our lead man, our Rowdy Roddy Piper. Who would we get to play him today? Obviously, keeping in mind that this movie is going to still have a campy feel to it, so it needs a little bit of camp.
We're not going to go Vin Diesel because he's too
A-list.
Okay,
you can call him A-lister or not, but he's too mainstream. He's too well known.
And so we're not going to go Dwayne because
we're not going The Rock.
He's G.I. Joe.
Well,
at this point.
he's also too giant.
He's too G.I. Joe at this point.
Yeah, exactly. He's too G.I. Joe.
Obviously, somebody that has some merit in the B movie.
I
realm,
agree.
right?
I agree.
Okay.
So it should be somebody that has not just B movie acting, but someone that is B movie and kind of the genre of apocalypse. That brings to mind for me only one actor.
Sounds like you thought of this one, though.
Yeah, it sounds like we might have had this conversation before. So, we have decided on that this movie would have been better with Bruce Campbell as the starring lead actor.
The funny thing is, Bruce Campbell was definitely a very different physique, person, actor compared to Roddy.
Different, you mean better? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Bruce Campbell. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Right.
What about so in the movie, there's two women that go with him basically wherever he goes. There's the Nurse Sparkles, who is his keeper basically, and then there is the military style gunner chick, whatever you want to call her.
Eat land, froggies.
That Niles having fun with a soundboard moment is brought to you by.
I needed to get a clip of her. That's what I needed.
Yeah, we did not have any clips of her. So going back to movies like Avatar and other movies where there's really only, to me, one female actor who can pull off the tough military stylings.
Granted, she gets typecast.
Yeah, absolutely. But some people get typecast for a reason.
Yeah, Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez.
Yes,
absolutely. All right,
She would definitely fit that role very well.
Okay. Now, what about Nurse Sparkles? So Nurse Sparkles is someone who, let's just say in the movie, she thinks she's more attractive than she is. Is that the right word? Is that safe?
Yeah. That's,
okay.
Let me do this dance to turn you on, Mr. Rowdy Piper.
So I'm gonna go. So we talked about it earlier.
I'm gonna take off some of my clothes for you to, make you so hot.
So we're gonna go with Uma Thurman. She actually has a similar build. Her face structure is very similar to this actress.
She could wear the glasses. She could do the blonde. She can do the I think she's like spot on.
I agree.
Spot on for that.
Okay, now I'm drawing a blank here on who we had as Ron. Okay, we listed here that we're having Ron Perlman play somebody.
Yeah,
who
so
are we having Ron Perlman
obviously
play?
we had this discussion before we came on air. Ron Perlman, I believe we thought of as one of the Toad. He was
the Toad character.
He was the Toad. He was the leader.
That's right. Yes, he was the leader of the frog people in basically the mutant race, or the mutants in Frogtown. Then we have the character of Bull. Who is Bull?
Shut your hole!
That would be the one.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What about this?
That would also be the one.
Oh, wait. How about this?
Night she'll never forget!
So, to me, when you dream up of a beefy character who's always kicking everybody's butts and always has terrible one-liners, even if it's grunting, think 80s, 90s B actor, Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, I mean, we're talking about these guys, but Ron Perlman and Dolph Lundgren would be behind these frog masks. So the thing I had about the movie was, so we have these, 4 characters. We have 4 of the frog people who look like frogs. I mean, they're
full on.
They
it's
are,
not
they are
just
full on frogs.
Yeah, like their faces
stand.
are like masks where.
And
they
then
are
we have
frogs.
all the soldiers and all the other characters who are these hybrid type frogs. And so the problem I had with it was, so why do we have these actual frogs, and then why do we have these hybrids? Were they not complete frogs yet, or were they just? I don't know what was going on with that part of the movie. But.
Yeah, there were kind of a couple of different versions of the frog people.
Virgins?
No, well, okay, yeah, they're in that too. Versions of the frog people.
Which, by the way, part of the storyline was they were holding a couple of virgins for some reason. I don't know. Maybe they're going to make frog hybrids out of them.
I have no idea. There are a lot of plot holes in this movie. Let's just
here
say.
Comes Roddy Piper to pregnate them. I should say.
I think it's impregnate, not
them.
Pregnate them.
I just like pregnant better.
Pregnate does sound amusing. All right. Okay. So this is a way that we think this movie would not necessarily be better, but at least be watchable in a modern day setting. The other way that we were actually talking about earlier when we were out hiking today was, what if these frog people were done as actually no, that was not about this movie, but now that we think about it, like Gollum.
What?
Like Gollum. Like what if these frog people were done from a CG perspective, where it was motion capped and an actual kind of a little bit more CG. I think you could do it pretty well these days.
Well, I mean, so we were talking
about Ninja Turtles, but I was bringing it back to this because Ninja.
Well, I mean,
turtle guys versus frog people, it's not that different.
I mean, whether you go full frog or you go hybrid frog, I mean, they kind of picked two ends of the spectrum basically. Like those full frogs, and then there was like hybrids, or like sort of hybrids. They were like lizards. I can't talk. Anyway, so I mean, the thought is, where do you go with how these hybrids basically evolve? I mean, do you go full frog?
Do you go full frog? I never thought in my life I would heard somebody utter those words.
Hey, let me say that.
Do you go full frog?
Yeah. Do you go full frog or do you go hybrid? I don't know. That's
So anyway.
But anyway, motion cap. Yep.
I think it would be an interesting way to go with the movie. So that brings us to the the ways that these guys apparently thought they could make this movie again or better with some of the sequels.
So, believe it or not, there is more than one. Wendell, explain.
All right, so there was Frogtown, or Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Oh, yeah?
Then there was Return to Frogtown,
Oh, yeah?
a.k.a. Frogtown 2.
Oh, yeah?
And then there was one of the greatest names, or worst names, at the same time in movie history, Max Hell Frog Warrior.
So I think one thing we found out was it was originally released as Toad Warrior.
That's right, yes. It was originally released as Toad Warrior. And
in
then,
1996. And then in 2002, I think they changed the name. Is that correct, Wendell?
Yes. In 2002, they re-released it as Max Hell Frog Warrior. Now, the interesting thing about that last one is that one was made using a technique known as Zen filmmaking, which sounds really cool until you see that it's actually a style of filmmaking where no scripts are used.
I don't know. Zen filmmaking kind of scares me at that point.
Yeah. So at first,
seeing films being made, Zen filmmaking is definitely.
Have you ever been
scary,
on one?
No, I haven't been on a Zen film.
Okay, probably a good thing. Probably,
but I can only imagine like long days and confusing. It's I don't know.
Okay,
basically, it's a small crew, so it doesn't really matter.
When we looked at Wikipedia and realized that there were actually sequels to this movie, we were like, we're never going to watch these until we realized that the star of Frogtown 2 is actually Lou Ferrigno.
You won't like me when I'm angry.
Yes, the original Hulk starred in Frogtown 2. Now, I do think they went downhill from there with Toad Warrior, a.k.a. Max Hell Frog Warrior, because at that point they started turning to the strippers and started starring various adult video stars.
They're going to have to get topless because otherwise who's going to watch these films, right?
Very true. So, all right. Sorry, I just started playing the soundtrack again in the background.
Hey, Squid Lips.
So Squid Lips is what they called the frog, or Squid Lips or Greenies.
Yeah, Greenies.
Or Greeners, for what they called the frog people in the movie. So the soundtrack, if you want to call it that.
Soundtrack.
For starters, it was never actually released as a soundtrack. It's a typical 80s music. It's not anything spectacular. David Shapiro was the composer of it. He worked on 3 movies in the late 80s.
Which are basically part of the same caliber.
Yeah, exactly. They're all like bad B movies. Yeah. He hasn't worked on anything since the 80s. It's a pretty unremarkable soundtrack. It involves a little bit of ribbiting here and there.
Ribbit.
Yeah. So, yeah. This is one of those movies where it's entertaining for what it is, I suppose, but I don't know what else to say about it. To be honest.
Basically, we pulled 2 tracks from the film, and there was like the end credits and then the title sequence.
That's because of the only 2 parts that we could grab where it didn't have ridiculous dialogue.
Yeah, and the trailer sucked too. But anyway.
Yeah, the trailer wasn't very good.
I mean, I guess we covered sort of the dystopian element of this film.
Yeah, and
is there anything that we?
I actually do like the premise of it, especially as they're going into Frogtown. Frogtown actually reminded me a little bit of some of the towns in Waterworld. Kind of these oases of, not humanity necessarily, but these oases of survival where everybody has come to survive the apocalypse, whether it be water in Waterworld or, atomic war. And so you have these basically refugees of this war living in this area. So, again, it's an interesting premise, and I kind of like the premise, but just in execution, I think the execution was about as bad as I've seen in a movie.
And you know what? The funny thing, we were talking about this, was if you had some better talent in there, it may have really saved the film. I mean, if Rowdy Piper was a better actor, it may have been that much more, better. I mean,
you're asking for a lot.
But this is why we went through and said, oh, maybe we should get, Mr. Perlman. Or not Perlman, but Campbell. So, yeah. I mean, if we had the better talent behind this film, who knows? Who knows? Which is why maybe we'll make this movie in the future. Not.
So are we agreeing that we're at least going to put Frogtown 2 on our list of other movies so that
it's Lou Ferrigno.
I know, that's the exactly like it's Lou Ferrigno. I can't just not put him on a movie list.
Well, we can't say no at this point.
Okay. So, agreed. We're putting Lou Ferrigno's Frogtown 2 on our alternate movie list.
I saw the poster for the third one, and I want to stay as far away from it as possible.
Yeah. The third one I would say is off our list.
The fact that they hired a porn star, I feel like it'd be more of like a half porn, half.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so on that note, I think that says about all that we need to for purposes of that. So we're going to go ahead and move into our mid-episode break. We're going to play just a little bit of the 1984 soundtrack for you. That's going to be the next movie that we're going to talk about. And that's going to cover kind of some of the things about 1984, including the soundtrack, which I actually kind of enjoyed the soundtrack, but there's a lot of controversy around that, as you'll hear us talk about.
Like 2 different ones.
So we hope you enjoy this. We've got the little bit of music from 1984.
Hi, this is Nicole Spag from the Final Score and TMS Recommendals. You are listening to the Dystopic Boys on the Dystopic Radio Network.
Sex, crime.
The world we are preparing, Winston, is a constant victory, a constant triumph. You are beginning to accept it. You'll soon welcome it. And finally, become part of it.
In 1949, George Orwell had a vision of the future. Today, that vision is still a best-selling novel, and his prophecy remains as terrifying as ever.
If you want a vision of the future, Winston, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
A future where freedom becomes slavery, where privacy is forbidden, the past forgotten, and where living people simply vanish. John Hurt, Susanna Hamilton, Cyril Cusack, and Richard Burton in the crowning role of his career. The film of the book of the year. George Orwell's 1984.
Paper! Have you ever seen paper?
And hey, everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the sex crime trailer.
1984.
So we'll get into that in a little bit, as far as why the Eurythmics are doing a trailer for 1984. But in the meantime, that sound means it's time for Lost Pages. So I actually got a chance this past week to finish rereading 1984 by George Orwell.
Oh?
Yeah,
Oh,
indeed.
yeah?
It was one of those ones where it's actually not a fast read. It's one of those ones you have to reread a lot of stuff because it's pretty intense.
I
But
bet, really.
it was pretty good.
Just considering the film, I can only imagine what the book.
Yeah,
felt like.
The movie really, or the film. Sorry, Niles.
Sorry, yeah. I'm gonna call this a film.
Yeah. No, you're right. This is a film. The film definitely it covers. There are moments where it's almost word for word out of the book. Like what he's saying and what he's thinking are pretty much word for word out of the book. But it gives a lot more detail about the things that he's experiencing and kind of the world that he's living in and the scenarios that he's going through throughout the course of this story. It's one of those books where it's not a happy book. Right, it's not a happy story, right? It's I don't want to get too much into the movie right now because we're going to be covering that here in a little bit.
Sure.
But and we'll cover a little bit of the comparison later. But the book really takes things to the next level as far as explaining this world and what type of the way the government is and how the world got to be what it is today.
And how they go about, going back through the news and, taking care of the news and,
exactly.
I'm sure they go into way more detail.
Yeah, they go into a lot more detail about the ways that the government controls its population and even information about the war that's going on and things like that. And again, we'll get more into that here in the movie segment from that. But 1984 is an interesting book in that George Orwell has become kind of a, not necessarily household name, but he's become known for this, and I'm drawing a complete and utter blank for the other thing he's known for. I want to say The Jungle, but that's by Upton Sinclair. Anyway, 1984 has been on numerous lists of banned books in different countries, and being pushed to be banned because of some of the things that it pushes. Orwell's name actually has been started to be used as a adjective. So Orwellian is kind of a common thing because primarily in part due to his authorship of 1984.
Yeah, descriptive or totalitarian. Why am I even trying to read these big words?
I have no idea.
Right now.
Totalitarian.
But no, he's definitely become this way of looking at certain ideas or certain topics. He's had such a mark on this kind of sci-fi or dystopian kind of world because of this film. Because of this book. He's definitely made a staple because of this book.
Exactly. Yeah. There have been a lot of, and again we'll get into this a little bit later in the movie segment, but his book has inspired or sparked some of the some writing and even advertising, as we'll get into later, from a lot of different companies that I don't think any other literature really has sparked.
Animal Farm,
thank you. Yeah, that's the other one. Animal Farm, and I believe that one has to do with communism as well.
Another big...
Yeah, Animal Farm is right up there.
Seller.
I think 1984 is probably considered a little bit bigger and more well-known than Animal Farm, but Animal Farm is definitely up there on the lists of kind of well-known books about government control and things like that. Obviously, Animal Farm is set on a farm, which is interesting in and of itself.
The fact that he's covering up these characters with animals, or it's just
it's a really interesting premise. So yeah, I've actually was hoping to get the post up on Lost Pages on the website here Friday. Did not happen, but I should be getting that up here next week. So if anybody has any input on that, feel free to go on and post up on that once I get that up. So
I'm
yeah,
sure we could do a whole another podcast on this film.
Well,
book, but.
that the book was one that I meant to get some other stuff read as well, but that one really took up a lot more time than I thought it was going to. That's one of those where when they start describing some of the not teachings, but some of the philosophies that this government has, it's almost like you have to go back and read it a couple times because it's pretty deep stuff that does not necessarily make a ton of sense the first time you read it through. And you can read 3 paragraphs and all of a sudden realize you have no idea what they were just talking about. And you got to go back and read it again. So it took me a little longer than it typically does, but it was a really good read. And I had read it the first time probably back in 8th grade. Have not read it since. So it was familiar, but definitely kind of a whole different perspective on it now versus back in, let's see, it was 8th grade, 95, something like that. So yeah. All right. Well, let's, speaking of 1984, let's go ahead and move on, and we'll talk about the movie itself and hear a little bit by our voice work guy, Mark.
After the atomic war, the world is divided into 3 states. London is a city in Oceania, ruled by a party who has total control over all its citizens. Winston Smith is one of the bureaucrats, rewriting history in one of the departments. One day, he commits the crime of falling in love with Julia. They try to escape Big Brother's listening and viewing devices, but of course, nobody can really escape.
So that I liked how Mark's reading of it was.
Wait.
Oh, we're
wait for it to come in.
We're listening to the.
So I mean, there was two releases, and there was a Eurythmic soundtrack, and then there was the other soundtrack, the score done by. Oh my God! What was his name? What was his name?
Dominic Muldowney.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, so the interesting thing about
Muldownys.
this was, there was originally the music you're hearing right now was written by Dominic Muldowney, who had originally done the score for 1984, and then in probably just
so good.
It was months before the movie was due to be released. I forget who the agency was that was controlling the movie, the production company, but they elected to change the soundtrack because they wanted to get a younger viewership. So they elected to get the Eurythmics.
Bull crap.
They elected to get the Eurythmics to actually do the soundtrack, which I can't.
Sure. A younger
imagine.
audience to go see 1984. Let's go get young kids to see this movie. Yeah. Sure. Do they bring down the rating too? Of course, granted, in 1984, it didn't. It wasn't that big of a deal. But
so, yeah, we'll get to the whole kerfuffle with that in a second. But let's
kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle.
Oh,
yeah, it's a new word.
Yeah. I like that word.
This is our January word of the day. Word of the month is kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle.
So now let's hear a little bit about the kind of some of the people that were in this movie and stuff.
Yes, let's go. 1984, also known as The Number 1984, is a British dystopian film written by and directed by Michael Radford, who he's done a lot of document. I've been looking him up and looking at his filmography here. He's done a couple documentaries here and there. He did Flawless in 2007. So he's definitely not.
He's not a Michael Spielberg. He's not.
He hasn't. He's come up every once in a while, and he hasn't done Dancing at the Blue Iguana in 2000.
Dancing at the Blue Iguana.
Recently, he's done Hotel Lux in 2011, and then La Mula in 2012. So I mean, he's definitely all over the place in terms of what he's directed. But he's done a lot of documentaries. So and watching the film, you're like, yeah, I can see that. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, we got Hurt in it, John Hurt. We got Susanna Hamilton,
which John Hurt, also known for.
John Hurt is also in V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. The ironic thing is, In 1984, John Hurt plays the character that is on the side against the government. In V for Vendetta, John Hurt plays the character that is the government, so to speak.
Yeah, basically, he's the
the head of the British government, I believe. Chairman.
What's his name? I'm looking. Right. Adam Sutler is his name. Adam Sutler. That's all I have.
Thank you for that information, Niall.
But yeah, I mean, basically, in V for Vendetta, he kind of played a turnaround role. Like, all of a sudden, he was the face on the screen that everybody was watching, and the political leader of the time. So, to watch this film and then know he was in V for Vendetta, it's kind of this nice little flip around that we see. But he looks so old.
Oh, I know. Okay, so in this movie, John Hurt was 40-something. I believe he was 43, 44.
We love you, John Hurt.
And, I cannot imagine another actor playing this role, but in the movie, I thought he was 70-something. He looks... And I'm sure part of it was the makeup and everything, but they make him look like he has led an incredibly hard life, which I think
really
matches with the film.
Yeah.
Exactly. And whether that was on purpose or whether it just happened to be how he looks, I don't know, but I really liked how that worked.
And then we have... Oh, my God. Shit.
Richard Burton.
Yes, thank you. Richard Burton. Yep. Which is... This film was his last role... And, I mean, he's Golden Globe nominated. He's Academy Award nominated. I mean, especially in the 60s and 70s. Equus, The Robe back in 1953. So, I mean, and this was kind of, looked at as his final epic film performance. Especially, I mean, advertised in, the previews. But, I mean, he's been in Hamlet. He's been in... Tempest. I mean, he's done a lot of Shakespeare plays and films. I mean, that was kind of cool to actually see him in his final role.
So Richard Burton played the role of O'Brien. So O'Brien was the character who basically, when you first meet him, you think that he's a part of the resistance, so to speak, the Brotherhood, a secret underground organization that's against the government. Well, as the movie progresses and John Hurt's character, Winston Smith, starts to get closer to O'Brien and talk to him, after that has all happened, John Hurt's character gets arrested, and he finds that O'Brien was actually behind it, and that O'Brien was actually an undercover agent for the government.
Basically, everybody he knew were undercover. I mean,
yeah, with the exception of Julia.
Well, I mean, granted, that's kind of the way this society was brought up. Was if you saw anything that was against the way society was brought up to be, you'd report it. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were the son or daughter of the father. I mean, it was like you report it, and then they get basically erased from time.
Yeah, so you bring that up. That's actually a really interesting thing that I've never seen before in a story, was the concept that the government does not just try to change the perceptions of people, they change the past. And it's not that they change the past, they get their citizens to believe that the past is always whatever they say it was. And it's not that they've changed it, it's in the present, the past is always whatever they say it is.
Well, I mean, and that was the one thing in the film is Winston Smith he works for the department that goes through the documents and the records and changes the faces and the names and the times and the numbers to follow according with what's going on in that present.
Yeah, so an example of that is, let's say that there's a war hero who has been written about years ago in newspapers, and then all of a sudden 3 years later is found to be, quote-unquote, a traitor to the government, right? Well, John Hurt's character, Winston Smith, is one of these people that would go back and find every reference to this person being a war hero or anything like that, and will actually change those newspaper articles to read another person's name or change it to anything else, so that if you went back in time and looked at the history of this person, at no point would they appear to be good. They change history to make the present always look accurate and always look better than anything in the past.
And this goes to language as well. I mean, they go through the English language and cut out words or shorten words, or it's like double
plus good.
Double plus good instead of.
So they take, like, you've got good, great, amazing. Well, instead of good, great, and amazing being 3 different levels of one emotion, it's good, and then to represent better than that, it's plus good, and then even better is double plus good. So they're basically trying to limit the range of thought and the range of emotion that any individual can feel by eliminating what they deem to be unnecessary words in the English language.
Because there are such things as thought crimes and love crimes and whatever else. So, I mean, here's a conversation that a couple of them were having at the lunch table one day.
It's an encouraging thought that by 2050, not a single person will be able to have a conversation like this.
So the interesting thing about that is in the movie, you really don't get what he's talking about.
Yeah,
I thought that in the movie, when I was first watching the movie, I thought that he was talking about the fact that by 50 years from now, the government was going to be so oppressive that if you had this conversation, that you would be arrested or something, right? It was when I was reading the book that I realized what they were actually talking about was they were currently working on the 11th edition of the Newspeak, what they call the Newspeak Dictionary. And in that dictionary, it eliminates so many words. What this gentleman was referring to was almost in a prideful way that in 50 years, the words would not exist in the English language to actually hold a conversation like this. So it's like the citizens would not even realize that they couldn't have that conversation because the words didn't exist to have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden you find yourself in the future not being able to use certain words because they've cut them out of the language, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's this is a concept that, dystopian approaches from the government perspective have been done in so many different ways, but this was one that kind of blew me away as far as the approach to it and the idea that the government just doesn't tell you what you can't do. The government actually makes you think that the way they want you to think is the only way there is to think. And that's an interesting concept that, I think gets missed a lot in dystopian movies these days, dystopian media as a general rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Wow, that was profound.
Sorry, I'm reading some of the I'm catching up on the Ustream comments, and it's ridiculous.
So
thank you all.
All right. So okay, let's get back to a little bit of the controversy around.
So I want to talk about one thing, and that was
continue.
O'Brien's character.
Yes.
Originally, Paul Scofield, Anthony Hopkins, Sean Connery, and Rod Steiger were originally looked at for this role. And I thought Richard Burton was.
Out of those,
Richard Burton joined the production 6 weeks into its shooting schedule, so he actually showed up really late into the process, and which I thought was he did great. Honestly, but was Anthony Hopkins?
Okay, I have no idea who. Okay, and I apologize if this should be well known. Who's Paul Scofield?
You know what? Off the top of my head, I can't give you
good.
filmography. Here we
go.
Right.
All right. Sean Connery, obviously I know who he is. Rod Steiger.
He's a UK? Okay.
No idea who Rod Steiger is. All right, out of those names, there are only 2 that I really recognize, Anthony Hopkins and Sean Connery.
Well, obviously, yeah.
I do not think that both of those names, and maybe they were not as well known back in the 80s. Now, Sean Connery, I believe, was for James Bond stuff. But Anthony Hopkins, I don't know. My question is, I think that the character of O'Brien needed to be played by someone who was not a very well-known actor, because you didn't want to take away from John Hurt's character. O'Brien was a secondary character. Yes, he had a more major role to play in the end of the movie, but the play between John Hurt and Susanna Hamilton was definitely the primary relationship and the primary role. Secondarily was John Hurt and Richard Burton's their interactions towards the end as he has been arrested for this love affair. But
at the time, Anthony Hopkins in 1984 could have been fine. Because at the time, I mean, he was still known as Anthony Hopkins, but he wasn't, as big as he is maybe today. Paul Scofield, I'm looking him up. He did a lot of Shakespearean stuff as well. Probably some of the same stuff that our director did. But he was like a voice in Animal Farm in 1999. He played a lot of Shakespearean roles in Henry V, Hamlet, The Crucible in 1996. He played Judge Danforth.
I almost thought you were going to say Dredd.
Not in 1996. Wait,
Speaking
Judge Dredd was, which year was that? It was 90.
80. No.
Was it 80?
No, it wasn't 80. I don't remember. It was 90 something. But anyway.
But yeah, I mean, there's Scofield for you. So I mean, he's done a lot of stuff along with the director and John Hurt.
So yeah, so then we get
Richard
into
Burton.
a little bit more of the actual, a little bit of the controversy around this movie. They had originally tapped Dominic Muldowney to do the soundtrack for it, and it was going to be a very orchestral, however you say that word.
Which it is.
Score.
Orchestral. Yeah.
Which what we heard was very much that version.
Phenomenal, by the way.
A couple months, I believe, before the movie was due to be released, they changed it to the Eurythmics, and they actually changed that. From what I've heard, they changed the soundtrack and everything to something the Eurythmics had written. Well, afterwards, Dominic Muldowney actually, decried this, and he had no idea that they were going to be taking his score out of it, and a bunch of things like this, and. So the original theatrical release actually had the Eurythmics had the soundtrack, and it actually featured a desaturated color where they had desaturated the film color, which made sense to me. I thought that would actually do this film justice, right? Because of the world that it was in. Like, that makes sense.
I mean, I believe the version that we saw was the original desaturated.
Well, okay.
I believe.
So that's the interesting thing.
I believe.
If the one we
are so lost on what versions we are watching. And
so we watched one that we believe was in 2003. They released it on DVD, but they replaced the original Eurythmics soundtrack that had been in the theatrical release with the Dominic Muldowney original score. I believe that's the one that we watched, and in that one. In theory, they actually increased the saturation back up to what it was before they put it in theaters. So, again, I looked everywhere. I was not able to find a version of this that I think had the Eurythmics soundtrack in it. And I mean, if anybody out there knows where we can find that version, please let us know.
I saw one guy with a comment on Amazon saying, well, I had the original version on Laserdisc, and I appreciated this new version with the... Muldowney soundtrack.
So did Sean Connery suddenly start leaving Amazon notes?
That's more like this.
Oh, okay.
That's more like a Laserdisc like this. But yeah, I mean, so if you have a version, please, I want to hear the Eurythmics version, because I'm like, really? They use this whole soundtrack in this film, which when you watch the film, which you should watch the film, it's like, How does anything else but the Muldowney soundtrack fit into this film? Because
exactly
the tone of the film and the look of the film and the feel of the film. You can't. Granted, I mean, I saw the Muldowney first, so I mean that's my bias. But
the interesting thing is that in both versions, both Muldowney and the Eurythmics were both credited. So it's difficult to figure out which version is which unless you actually get a chance to watch them. And even in the Muldowney version, the song Julia, which you'll hear at the end of the podcast, the song Julia by the Eurythmics is featured in the closing credits of the Muldowney version.
And probably maybe in both versions.
It's probably in both versions.
And I mean, in the original theatrical release, they probably used some big cues from the Muldowney soundtrack in there, but... included more of the Eurythmics soundtrack in there, like the main theme that we played earlier. I mean, who knows? That may have been used. I mean, who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, it could have incorporated pieces of both.
Know.
Exactly. We have no idea, and I at some point want to sit down and be able to watch both of these versions of these movies.
I just want to scream.
All
Because I don't know.
If you've listened to any of their podcasts, you're starting to see a trend that the bad movies that we watch are typically the ones that we have the one-liners for to play in the soundboards. So another interesting so another interesting thing about 1984 is that it has actually sparked many of commercials. We didn't talk about this. So
let's do it.
In 1984, and we were going to commentate this, but I don't think we actually have it up anymore to play. So, but anyway,
you can look it up.
In 1984, Apple actually came out with the original Macintosh commercial. And it featured a very 1984-esque scene of a bunch of people enraptured by this figure up on a large telescreen.
In the blue,
jumpsuit, exactly, like the jumpsuit, like work jumpsuits, very much kind of a not slave mentality, but more of a like under the thumb of their all-powerful government kind of a thing. And then in the commercial,
doing the same thing. Walking the same line.
In the commercial, this woman runs up and she slings a sledgehammer as the police are coming after her, and the sledgehammer hits the screen, and then it says, on January 24th of 1984, Apple will be releasing the Macintosh, and it will give you a reason to see that 1984 will be nothing like 1984.
Like 1984.
So it was interesting that this, the movie 1984 has sparked numerous, including the remake in 2004 for the iPod launch, actually, again, by Apple.
Well, they just threw in an iPod.
All they did was digitally added a iPod that she was wearing, and including headphones and everything.
Still read the year 1984 won't be like 1984.
So then it actually has sparked... The interesting thing is that this has been a back and forth now between various companies, where you had Apple starting with this kind of against, obviously there was the insinuation that it was against Microsoft, of Microsoft being Big Brother, which was kind of the overall figure in 1984. Motorola actually came out with an anti-1984 response video in 2011.
With their tablet.
Yeah, exactly, with their tablet, where they were kind of started to show that they were attempting to display that the 1984 scenario was actually the Apple side of things, and that theirs was the different way to go. And, whatever, either way, the interesting thing to me about this is that this one book, this one movie has sparked, some of the most successful advertising campaigns in history, at least since the kind of television as a medium has come out. And that's something that not many movies or books can say.
Well, I mean, it definitely has to do with this theme of going against the Big Brother idea, the machine idea. I mean, breaking free from that strict idea, and creating thought crimes for yourself, and thinking for yourself and living for yourself. And I mean, it's the whole theme is in the film and in the book, and I mean, of course it would spark, I would hope it would spark great advertising. Especially with Apple coming out, against, the quote-unquote PC, like, everybody's got PC, but think for yourself, Macintosh is here, especially at that time. It was
exactly.
It was perfect.
And then it gets interesting now, especially these days, with kind of the iOS versus Android versus Windows Phone battles, and the whole.
So what was the study? The study you found?
Oh, that's right. There was actually a study.
I wanna talk about this.
There was actually a study done, and I don't remember. I'll try to find it and put it in the show notes. There was a study done, I believe it was a couple years ago, that this idea of religious zealous and what it does to brain chemistry. And they hooked up various individuals, and they found that the Apple fans, people who used the products and were fans of that product, the mention of various figures within the company, people like Steve Jobs, invoked the same chemical responses in the brain as mentioning someone like Jesus to a Christian or Buddha to a Buddhist. It invoked the same chemical responses in their brains as religion. And, they said that to a lesser degree, it was the same for anything where you're a fan of, whether it's a sports team or anything. But the interesting thing they found was that most people are not necessarily attached to the CEO of a company they're a fan of. It's like, yeah, I have an Android phone, but I could care less about Larry Schmidt. Like, or
who's the Schmidt?
Exactly.
Who's the Schmidt?
Like the I like a product that I use, but I don't necessarily care about the people that make it.
Well, yeah.
That's the thing, is like, I just want that thing. The device or the people that make it they're outside of my realm of thinking. I don't really care about that.
Well, I mean, in my hand I have the iPhone, and I think of Apple and I think of iPhone. I don't think of necessarily Jobs, or I don't think of the people who made it.
This study has stated that in a lot of cases, people that are fans of Apple, they buy their products not just because they like them, but it almost starts to develop
They believe in them.
They believe in them. They believe in them more than just as start to believe in them with a religious type of faith of, I have faith in this company that they have my best interests at heart, and that type of thing. And that's just
like an unrelenting belief that this new product will be better. And and the whole idea of 1984 is this whole idea of the now being better than it was ever before. I
think is a
it's so good.
Well, I think that's interesting, because these days it's there are so many battles between companies and things like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that stuff. And I think it's interesting that one of the original companies that used 1984 in its advertising has become one of the companies that, depending on who you talk to, has become the next Microsoft, the next Google, the next controlling company that, whatever. Regardless of which side you fall on, it doesn't matter. I just think it's interesting how, the bigger a company gets, the more likely it is to become that they are going to start to show those tendencies of control, and which ties right back into the Big Brother scenario of the more power you get, the more control you want to exert. Yeah. And that's actually something that was interesting in the book that did not come across at all in the movie. Was the movie, they don't really ever make major reference to why the party wants control. Well, in the book, they flat out start talking about the fact that,
I'm sure they spent a whole 2 chapters on it.
They start talking about the fact that control is for control's sake. Power is there because we want power, nothing more. Yeah. That's it. And I just think it's so interesting that all of these different plays on 1984, I mean, they're entire college courses that are designed around George Orwell and 1984. So we could talk for a week about this, but let's just leave it to say that if you're someone that is reading oriented, I highly recommend the book. If not, I highly recommend the movie as at least a good interpretation of the book.
I want to play, before we go, I want to play a clip from the film. Because, I mean, like we said, we could talk about this film and themes of whatever for days, but I want to play this one clip about keeping your humanity.
English, Niles?
Keeping your humanity through all the Wow! Anyway, I'm going to play this clip. All right, here we go.
It's not so much staying alive. Staying human is important. What counts is that we don't betray each other.
If you mean confessing, we're bound to do that. Everybody does. You can't help it.
I don't mean confessing. Confessing isn't betrayal. I mean feelings. If they can make me change my feelings. If they can stop me from loving you. That would be real betrayal.
They can't do that. It's the one thing they can't do. They can torture you and make you say anything. But they can't make you believe it. They can't get inside you. They can't get to your heart.
And so, I mean, when you look at the end of the film, when he's sitting there in the spoiler alert, when he's sitting there in the cafe in the film. In the film, you think he's been brainwashed. You think he's been taught. You think he's been changed to think in a certain way, and then finally at the end, you get a little piece of his humanity at the end. Like, he blinks, and all of a sudden you see there's still a part of his character.
Yeah.
But in the book...
Well, the interesting thing in the book is that you get that same thing in the book. The difference is the book is able to show you what is going on in his mind.
Yeah.
And in his mind, it's not that all of a sudden he has this sudden sense of self again. It's he suddenly internally... He's been taught now, and he truly believes that you can, whatever the party wants is what's right. Mm-hmm. And so when he suddenly, in that moment, starts to think something different, he beats it back down in himself. Mm-hmm. He changes how he thinks because he knows, he has faith that what he is thinking is wrong. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what he feels, he's been taught now and brainwashed that is not right. And so he truly believes something different. It's just... Stupid. Yes. But
no, he's been pushed so far that he realizes that I can't think any other way than,
But in the book, it's not even so much that he actually thinks that.
Oh yeah.
It's that his programming takes back over again.
I mean, that's thought crimes, right? I mean,
exactly.
He's not thinking for himself anymore. He's just been programmed to, just automatically act. Yeah. I love that part of the movie because, you're like, can they get to the actual heart of the person? I mean, can they actually change a person's perspective on this to the full soul,
to where it's not just you saying what they want to hear, but it's you actually believe what they want to hear.
Can you get to this point of I mean, it's... Oh.
I highly recommend anybody out there who has never read or watched, and even you, Niles, I know you've never read the book. I highly recommend you read the book.
I mean,
even if it takes you a year. Some of these
details I would really love to hear because, I mean, in the film, you're just like, more? I mean...
Exactly. Well, and it's that case of you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you don't even know what they're not telling you in the movie in the book.
Back to the conversation about, several years down the future, we may not be able to have this conversation. I mean, you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like what are they trying to say in that moment? So, again, we could have a conversation for the next week about this movie, various things about it, but let's just leave it at we highly recommend taking a read or watching this movie in whatever way, shape, or form. And if anybody actually is able to find the original version in the theaters that has
or can send it to us and rent it to us for a couple days. I mean,
that has the original Eurythmics soundtrack on it. We would love to get a chance.
Because I am just baffled that even worked.
I know. So okay, I think that's Niles. Anything else you want to talk about 1984 at this point?
I mean, if we just keep going, we'll just keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. I think it's time to go ahead and start talking about next month. So.
Hit the randomizer. What?
Okay, so
what are we gonna watch?
Before, and I meant to have this up on the soundboard, so I apologize. We actually have a listener, we actually have a listener recommendation.
That's right.
Somebody called in. Nick from Rhode Island called in and
got a voicemail.
Mentioned a movie that he would like to see us cover, and so we are actually going to cover it for our February episode. So let me find that here.
And thank you for all you that are commenting out there. I'm getting half distracted at the Thank you, Pickle Snack 42. Yeah, that's right. I'm looking
all
at
right, so we'll go ahead and play this here. Okay, so this is again voicemail by Nick in Rhode Island. As soon as it decides to play.
Hey, I'd just like to make a recommendation. There's a dystopic movie called Zenith. It's called Zenith. It's owned by Anonymous. That came out in 2010. It's a really good premise. It's based off the idea that humans have been genetically altered to basically be constantly happy. So the only way that it can really feel anything else is by pain. So there's some shady drugs going on, and it's actually a really good movie. It's kind of creepy, but you know that's what you guys are into. It's actually available for free from Vodo legally. It's a great movie. I really would recommend it. It could be right up your alley.
Oh, we like free.
Yeah. So so I took a look at this, and Zenith, and again, it's got a film by Anonymous, which I have no idea who that is or what they are. 2010 American psychological thriller about two men attempting to solve the same conspiracy theory. It refers to a grand Zenith conspiracy, involves alternate reality games and transmedia storytelling. And this is actually interesting because they actually did involve like websites and things like that as a part of the movie campaign back in 2010.
Oh, yeah.
So, so we are absolutely, we're going
big.
to take a look at that for our 2010.
Yes, thanks, Nick. We are going to feature it in the next episode.
I meant in our February episode, not in our 2010 episode. I have no idea.
We are going back in time.
Okay, so that's going to be one of our movies, our kind of our secondary movie for February. So let's take a look at the randomizer for purposes, and Niles really wants me to hit this.
You gotta hit
it. There we go. Okay. So on our
what's next on the list window?
All right. So on our list of movies that you and I actually want to watch, let's see. Okay, I'm going to do the randomizer again. So we've got number 2 up through 63. Hitting the randomizer.
You say these numbers, and I'm like, I don't care.
2
I don't even
through
know what you're talking
63. Generate. Okay, it's going to be movie number. Apparently, this randomizer takes a long time to work. 54.
This is why you have to do it at the same time with the audio.
All right, so 54 is The Stand.
Oh.
By I'm about to say Michael Crichton. Not by Michael Crichton.
Crichton?
The Stand by
Stephen King?
Stephen King, thank you. Yeah, all right. Fantastic. We actually Renee and I were actually watching, I believe we started watching this here couple of months ago.
The Stand, huh?
Yeah. So this was actually a mini series. I believe they're talking about the mini series, not an actual film.
Oh.
I could be wrong on that. I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So The Stand was a mini series done in 1994 that covers, I believe it's 4 different episodes, which means we have to figure out how we're going to watch 4 episodes of a mini series.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
This is throwing a curveball here. What's
So,
going on here?
After the world is devastated by a man-made plague, a battle of literally biblical proportions ensues between the survivors, is what IMDb's little plot synopsis has. This is actually a really, really interesting book for anybody that has not read it.
Is this so? We're talking about the show, right? With
yes, it's a
Gary
mini-series. Sure.
And Molly Ringwald?
Yes, Gary Sinise. Molly Ringwald.
Oh, sweet.
Jamie Sheridan, Ruby
Nice.
D.
Rob Lowe.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot Rob Lowe is in this. Yes, absolutely. So fantastic. All right. So
we have a mini series to watch.
Yes, I believe it's 4 episodes
of
like 2 hours per.
What?
So we're gonna have to make a marathon of it. Okay, so for February, we're gonna be watching The Stand and Zenith by Anonymous.
All right. By the way, we are not just covering films; we are covering mini series as well.
Hey, if it's on IMDb's and Wikipedia's list of dystopian
you know what?
stuff,
I'm all for that. I mean, I'm looking for short films all the time, so I'm like, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Well, kind of a short film. A short film. It's a film split into 4 pieces.
On our list, we have a short film on our list. So, that's why I said it. Anyway.
Okay. So there you've got our movies that we're going to be watching. All right. So we're going to, I believe that's about it. Before we go, though, and I cover any feedback that we have, which we already played that one, the voicemail. We also happened to get a email today. Just came in this evening, actually.
What?
By a Renee Ramirez. It says, "Hey guys, it was great hiking with you today." Full disclosure, Renee Ramirez is my girlfriend. So,
you gave it away.
Yeah, we kind of coerced her into emailing to let us know.
She's like, "I have a suggestion," and then we're like,
well,
you better do something about it.
So, she says it's a good thing we were able to escape those zombies, right? And it was actually a good hike today, so we fully enjoyed it. During the commotion and panic, I forgot to mention that you should watch a movie called Branded. It came out in 2012, so I thought it might be a bit, but only a bit, better than Hell Comes to Frogtown. Hope to see you on the other side, Renee.
Which film was that?
Hell Comes to Frogtown. Wait.
No.
Branded.
Branded, okay.
So I actually did watch this with her a couple nights ago, and it's actually very good.
Cheater!
I know. Well, hey, I never said we weren't allowed to watch them outside of this. But no, it's actually very good. And which means, since this is... So, since this is our so we are doing a new thing where if someone suggests a movie to us, we're going to put it on our list in place of the random selection off of the other movie list.
I mean, the idea is if you want to suggest something, we want to talk about it sooner than later because, I mean, if you put it on the list, we may not get to it for another year or two. So, I mean, if you call and request, we want to be able to do it, sooner than later so we can actually talk to you about it and hopefully you're still listening and whatever.
So
that's the idea
for February, we're going to be covering our listener request will be Zenith by Anonymous, and then our March request will be Branded, 2012 movie. So thank you, Renee, for your recommendation.
But so next month, we have The Stand, and we have Zenith next month.
The Stand and Zenith for next month, and the month after that, we will be covering Branded and something else, which will be covered randomizer.
Which will have some finagling to do because you are gone for most of February.
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know, I will be starting an additional job in February. Thank you. I'll be starting the first officer program for a Kenmore Air Express out of Boeing Field.
Woo-woo.
They fly Cessna Caravans and Chieftains.
For
so
those
I start
out there.
Yeah, for any airplane people out there. So I start ground school in February. I do ground school and sim training. So we will be trying to frantically get in these movies and things like that in between all of that stuff. Let's see. Without further ado, we'd like to thank Mark Howland for his voice work on this episode again, as always.
Yes, thank you, Mark. It was excellent.
Yeah, fantastic. If you'd like to contact us. You can send us your emails, feedback@dystopicradio.com. You can contact Niles or me at Niles or Wendell at dystopicradio.com.
Oh, yeah.
You can send us a Twitter message at Dystopic Radio. You can contact us on facebook.com/Dystopic Radio or on iTunes. Give us a call at 206-414-9309.
9309.
I have no idea what that means. But Niles
I
thinks it means something.
I wish it said Dead Live, but
yeah, I actually tried to look for some other numbers that might mean something, but most of them were taken.
Anyway.
All right. So, Niles?
Hello, survivors. If you're still out there and you're still listening via radio 25 feet from our house, or Ustream, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever. If you're surviving, stay tuned because we will be back and we will survive together.
And we will.
I'll see you guys on the other side.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you for listening.
That was rough.
Julia, when the leaves turn from green to brown, and autumn shades come tumbling down, Julia, to leave a carpet on the ground where we have lain.
This broadcast has been brought to you by the Dystopic Radio Network and survivors like you.
Resembling a frog. Hell. Sorry. I was going nowhere with that one. Yeah, sorry. Sorry.